Evolution's leading arrow advances to greater autonomy and consciousness. Evolution's trailing arrow reshapes earlier evolutionary forms in support of the leading edge of creativity's advance. With the threshold to reflection, circa 100,000 years ago, the organic aligned in response to the human quest to understand. With the threshold to meaning, as it unfolds today, humankind accepts and takes command of organic realignment. This is Session 4, Design Criteria, in a course titled, Blueprint for Reconstruction, and that is an aspect of a larger view, Evolution of Consciousness Theory. In this session, we look at how humanity will manage evolution's trailing arrow. To what design criteria will we reconstruct the Earth's urban and ecological infrastructure? We cannot say exactly what the Earth's urban and ecological infrastructure will be like decades or centuries from now, nor should we try to do so. The details await our invention, and we will learn as we go. But we can envision our future landscape in sweeping terms. To what ideals must we build? To what standards of beauty, artistry, and functionality must we aspire? To establish the design criteria for rebuilding our planet's urban and ecological infrastructure, we begin by formulating the defining principle to which our blueprint for reconstruction must aspire. When we take into consideration what we know about the Earth, about our environment, and about ourselves as evolving beings in an evolving universe, what is our blueprint's guiding principle? The objective of our blueprint for reconstruction is to establish the urban and ecological infrastructure that allows the individual to exercise his or her creative power, and that, through the process of planning and construction, serves as an avenue for the individual's creative expression. We want to shape a physical environment that allows every man and woman to evolve to his or her highest state of being, and that, through the individual's growth and betterment, through our path on the evolutionary journey, allows humanity and the universe to evolve to its highest state of being. And we want to evolve through the process of creating that environment. The act of creation is as essential to the task of earthly perfection as is perfection itself. The guiding principle of our blueprint for reconstruction of the Earth's urban and ecological infrastructure is broad and encompassing. Within its framework, we can create almost any world we can imagine. What, then, do we want our countryside to look like? It goes without saying that we want wilderness areas. The preservation of certain traditional ecological systems is of unquestionable value. Long ago, Muir, Marsh, Thoreau, and others in the early environmental movement brought into consciousness the spiritual value provided by ancient ecological systems. Wilderness gives us a sense of belonging in the universe. Wilderness allows us to look back in time and to come to terms with our evolutionary journey. The simplification of the biosphere began long before humankind played a direct role, but, as stewards of evolution's trailing arrow, we make the design choice to in certain areas stop or roll back organic decomplexification. As the overseers of evolution's trailing arrow, we also make a design choice in the management of the Earth's intermediate zones, those regions that are not wilderness, but that are not as heavily developed as arable land, and areas closer to urban centers. Here, our goal is not to leave traditional ecological systems untouched, but to manage traditional systems in a way that meets human needs. These needs may be recreational, skiing, hiking, hunting, fishing, and boating. They may be practical. As we will see, our need for water, mineral, and timber resources in the future will not be as great as it is today. But we will still need raw materials. Our goal in the management of the Earth's intermediate regions is to stabilize ecosystems at a level of complexity that allows us to interact with them without disrupting their equilibrium to such an extent that we drive them across the threshold to a less complex and productive ecological level. We want to manage intermediate zones in a way that sustains our use. The Earth's agricultural lands require a more focused approach. An agricultural system is not a natural ecological system, but an engineered ecological system. It is a set of human-determined ecological interactions, maintained through the input of labor and materials. We need agriculture for food, fiber, and other organically based products. We also need agriculture for another reason, and it is no less important. Today, in technologically developed regions of the world, agriculture is an economic process: land, labor, and capital. Yet, farming, and the connection to the land that farming provides, can be a remarkably fulfilling experience. Our design objective is to engineer our agricultural practices in a way that meets our need for organic matter, and that fulfills the creative needs of the farmer. Our design criteria call for a landscape where the agricultural process is driven by the drive and imagination of those who work the land. We want to re-establish the family farm, farming as a way of life. We must also design the Earth's rural environment to include a highway system that in a coherent way allows us to access the countryside. Moreover, we will live and work in the countryside. We must design and build homes and other small structures to complement rather than detract from the rural landscape. Similarly, we must design and build highways and rural communities to integrate with, rather than to stand apart from their surroundings. Whatever structures we build, we must engineer them to resist fires, floods, tornadoes, earthquakes, and other rigors imposed by the ecosystem in which they are built. As for the urban environment of tomorrow, our goal is twofold. First, we must engineer our cities to allow for the freedom, mobility, and above all the creative inspiration of the individual. Second, we must engineer our cities to allow for the transformation of social structure, the freedom, mobility, and creative inspiration of the individual will bring about. Human societies have grown less collective over time. We have formed social arrangements that are less communal and more nestled, intricate, and strongly bonded. The city of tomorrow cannot be rigid or mechanistic. We must do more than partition the city into uniform blocks. In contrast to the land use planning ideals of today, we cannot base our plan on the notion of for the collective good imposed by a ruling elite through law, regulation, central control, and market manipulation. Our urban design must catalyze and allow for the personal growth of the individual, and for the manifestation of that growth into less collective forms of social organization. To accomplish this objective, our cities must have a structure where smaller urban units are arranged to create successively larger urban units. The basic urban unit, we will call it the urban community, must support a flexible number of more intimate levels of social order, down to the extended and immediate family. It must also be the building block of a coherent city social structure, and as such, the building block of a coherent regional, national, and ultimately global social structure. The dispersed geometry of today's city reflects a high degree of collectivization. Similarly, contemporary notions of world government, the New World Order, embody the collectivist ideals of decades and centuries past, dreams of the elite to rule the world. To accommodate the social structures of tomorrow, the city must not be based on geography. It must be based on centers of human activity. In this urban framework, we must also take into account the practical aspects of urban life. We must engineer communication and transportation systems that allow us to freely interact with one another. We must devise ways to run utility lines without stringing wires on poles or burying pipes under streets. We must devise ways to efficiently transport goods and to process and dispose of waste. Today, we structure our lives around our urban infrastructure, around money, safety, traffic, and environmental considerations for the sake of environmental considerations. In the future, we will structure our urban infrastructure around our lives. The human being will be the center of urban planning. The guiding principle of our plan to re-engineer the Earth's urban and ecological infrastructure is to create an environment conducive to human freedom and creativity, and to provide for our creative expression in the building of that environment. To adhere to this principle, we must restore, preserve, and develop our rural lands, and engineer our cities to provide for mobility, communication, and social decollectivization. At the heart of every design choice must be the individual. Our task must be to provide every man woman, and child with the means and freedom to follow his or her path in evolution. Some people prefer a rural lifestyle, solitude, introspection. Others prefer an urban lifestyle, community, human energy. As architects and engineers, it is not our role to judge another person's evolutionary road. It is not our place to dictate where and how others should live. Neither, in an economics of fulfillment world, is it our job to allocate resources and limit opportunity and avenues for personal growth. The Earth's urban and ecological landscape is the canvas of all. Our task is artistic and functional. It is the perfection of life on Earth, and the building of that which allows for earthly perfection. How do our design criteria align with and differ from traditional environmental ideals? How do our design criteria align with and differ from traditional economic ideals? With our look at the design criteria to which we will build the world of tomorrow, we complete session 4 in our course titled Blueprint for Reconstruction. Time to get to work. Time to draw a plan for the world of the future, a blueprint for the Earth in the age of fulfillment. Our course on the reconstruction of the Earth's urban and ecological infrastructure continues in session 5, the countryside.